Week 12 ions. I don't know why I'm doing this. You guys all know them so well already. I'm coming at you live from first hour of class, fall of 2012, in case this video is still up 12 years from now. So, we're going to week 12 ions, and what do you notice about all of them except the last one, everyone? They all start with an H. If only there was some pattern where the name were always the same if it started with just an H. If only we could like have a word, a prefix of some sort that meant this one starts with an H. Wouldn't that be convenient? And wouldn't we never miss it ever again then?
Hydrogen.
Hydrogen. Well, that's the long way of doing it. Hydrogen is one thing we say. Let's go back to the H in a second. Let's pretend these didn't have an H. We'll do this guy last. Oops, did I copy that down wrong, or did it actually say that? That should be -2 there. So the should have got these. So let's ignore the H's for a second. SO4, have we seen that before? Yeah, we learned that it is sulfate, and it has a -2 charge. Sulfate does. And this is sulfite, it has a -2 charge. And this is, who dat? Oxalate has a -2 charge. Phosphate has a -3 charge. So what do we notice about each one of these? Well, they're each some ion we already know, because we learned them, with an H on the front. But hold on a second, what about the charges? This is sulfate's -2, sulfite's -2, oxalate's -2, phosphate's -3. Do you see a pattern here? What's the pattern? The pattern. Sulfate without an H is -2, with an H it's -1. Sulfite without an H,
it takes one away.
Takes one away.
Actually,
well, be careful the way you say it. The negative numbers aren't
Come on, Maddie.
that actually adds one. So does it make sense that if you stick what's the charge of hydrogen usually? Does it make sense if you stuck one of those on there, you should add 1 to the charge? It looks like you took one away, but remember the negative. So we actually added one. So this -2 plus 1 is -1. -2 plus 1 is -1. Blah blah blah. -3 plus 1 is -2. So that's the pattern. If you have an H on the front, it's usually some ion you've already learned, sulfate, sulfite, oxalate, phosphate. You stick that H on the front, and then you can basically say hydrogen sulfate, or hydrogen sulfite, or hydrogen oxalate, or hydrogen phosphate. That is always okay. Even if your ion sheet doesn't say those words, you can always put that. But the much easier thing to do would be to use the prefix, which for ions means hydrogen. What is that prefix? Those of you who are staring at an ion sheet right now. What? Bi. Bi. Biphosphate means hydrogen phosphate. Bioxalate. Now bioxalate's a little bit awkward, so you stick that N in there so it rolls off the tongue a little bit better. Binoxalate. Bisulfate. Bisulfite. Biphosphate. And so that's all of them, except for this one. This one is not in our pattern. It does not start with an H. It's acetate. Your book actually, the book we currently use, and most books probably use acetate, they denote it that way, C2H3O -1. Why do I have it that way? Well, because I'm old school, and back in the day, it was usually given this way. Why? It has to do with the structure, and it's an organic chemistry thing you wouldn't understand, but it doesn't really matter. If it's easier for you to remember it this way, go right ahead. I'll take either one, but this is the way that I usually show it. CH3COO. It's a little bit weird and inconsistent, I know, I'm sorry for that, but it's acetate. It's just one of those ones you have to memorize. There's really not a trick to it. I am done.